Scorpio, I need to wake you up from an illusion that's ruining your life. You're waiting for 2026 to arrive to start over, waiting for the calendar to turn to finally do things differently, waiting for the arrival of a new year, as if it brings with it some magical power of transformation. But let me tell you a truth that will hurt. It's not 2026 that needs to change. It's you. And if you don't change, if you don't do the brutal inner work you're avoiding, 2026 will be exactly the same as 2025, which was the same as 2024, which was the same as all the previous years where you promised that this time it would be different. You know what I'm talking about. You feel it, that constant sense of déjà vu, as if you're living the same year over and over again with different names and dates, the same problems, the same conflicts. The same types of people disappointing you in the same ways. The same promises you make to yourself at the turn of the year and abandon in February. The same endless cycle of intensity, burnout, isolation, recovery, and then intensity again. You're trapped in a time loop of your own making, and the only person who can break that cycle is yourself. But here's the problem. You're a Scorpio. You're a master of transformation when it comes to external situations, when it comes to other people, when it comes to projects, environments, relationships. You know exactly how to destroy what no longer serves you and rise from the ashes. But when it comes to applying that transformative power to yourself, to your own wounds, your own patterns, your own self-destructive behaviors, you resist fiercely. You prefer to blame the universe, blame other people, blame bad luck, blame the past year. Anything but look in the mirror and admit that you are the constant in all the equations that aren't working in your life. Are you ready to stop running from this truth and finally face it head on? Let me show you what will happen if you don't change. January 2026 will arrive with all that energy of a fresh start. You'll be motivated, full of plans, swearing that this time it will be different. You'll create ambitious goals. You'll promise yourself that you won't repeat the mistakes of 2025. But in February, March at the latest, you'll be exactly back in the same patterns. Because you didn't change the route, you only changed the packaging. You will continue to engage with emotionally unavailable people because you haven't yet healed the part of you that believes love has to be difficult to be real. You will continue to sabotage yourself professionally because you haven't yet confronted the deep fear you have of your own power and what it truly means to shine. You will continue to isolate yourself in the moments when you most need connection because you haven't yet learned to be vulnerable without feeling like you're losing control. You will continue to use your intensity as a weapon against yourself, burning bridges that took years to build in moments of anger that could have been avoided if you had done the emotional work you're putting off. And in December 2026, you'll be exactly where you are now. Looking back with that familiar mix of regret and frustration, wondering why another year has passed without the changes you so desperately want, making the same New Year's resolutions you've made 5, 10, 15 times before, hoping that 2027 will somehow be magical, and the cycle continues and continues and continues until you die without ever having truly lived the life you always knew you were capable of having. Scorpio, for those born between October 23rd and November 2nd, the pattern that most needs to be broken is your tendency to test people until they fail, and then use that failure as proof that no one is trustworthy. For those born between November 3rd and 12th, the destructive cycle is your need to control everything to the point of stifling any possibility of organic and spontaneous growth in your life. And for those born between November 13th and 21st, the pattern is your difficulty in forgiving, not others, but yourself, which keeps you trapped in old versions of yourself that should have been buried long ago. But all of you, regardless of your specific birth date, share a central pattern that needs to be destroyed, the belief that transformation has to be violent to be real, that you only change through crises, that you only grow through extreme pain. that you need to hit rock bottom before you can rise. This belief is keeping you trapped in cycles of self-destruction that you romanticize as intensity or depth, when in reality they are just unhealed wounds that you keep picking at instead of letting heal. You're addicted to drama, addicted to intensity, addicted to emotionally charged situations that make you feel alive even while they're slowly killing you inside. And whenever life starts to stabilize, whenever things start to flow easily, you unconsciously create chaos to return to your familiar zone, even if that zone is painful, because you know pain. You know how to handle pain. Pain makes you feel in control in some distorted way. But peace, genuine stability, sustainable happiness, that terrifies you because it's uncharted territory. And that's why 2026 won't save you, because you don't need external salvation. You need to stop destroying yourself internally. You need to break the cycle where you are your own worst enemy, where you sabotage your own victories because a part of you doesn't believe you deserve to win, where you push away good people because you're so used to bad ones that genuine kindness seems suspicious, where you always keep one hand on the exit door because you're so convinced that everything will end badly that you'd rather be the one to end it than risk being left behind. But let me tell you something you need to hear. This version of you isn't who you really are. It's who you've become as a defense mechanism. It's the armor you built after being hurt. It's the fortress you erected so you'd never be vulnerable again. But you've turned that fortress into a prison. And now you're so used to living within those walls that you've forgotten you built them yourself and that you can tear them down. The change that needs to happen isn't superficial. It's not about new habits or routines. It's not about waking up earlier or exercising more or being more productive. Those things are consequences. The real change, the one that will break the cycle, is about you finally making peace with your own power, with your own intensity, with your own capacity to love deeply without losing yourself in the process, with your ability to be vulnerable without feeling weak, with the possibility of selectively trusting instead of trusting no one. You need to change the way you relate to your own emotions. Stop treating them as enemies that need to be controlled or suppressed, and start seeing them as valuable information about what's happening inside you. You need to change how you respond to fear. Stop preemptively attacking everything that threatens your zone of control, and start asking, why does this scare me so much? You need to change how you define strength. Stop thinking that strength is never needing anyone, and start understanding that true strength is having the courage to need and ask for help when necessary. You need to change how you deal with rejection. Stop turning it into fuel for revenge or bitterness, and start seeing it as a redirection towards something better. You need to change how you hold grudges. Stop carrying resentments from 10 years ago as if they were badges of honor, and start releasing what no longer serves you to make room for the new. You need to change how you define loyalty. Stop thinking that loyalty means never setting boundaries or always putting others first, and start understanding that the first loyalty you owe is to yourself. Does all this change sound exhausting? Does it seem like too much work? Does it seem easier to continue as you are and just hope that next year will be better by some miracle? Well then, prepare to live in an eternal loop, because the universe won't do for you the work that only you can do. The right people won't appear in your life while you continue to emanate the wrong energy. Opportunities won't materialize while you continue to sabotage yourself. Peace won't arrive while you continue to create internal war. You've had enough proof that waiting doesn't work. How many years have you wasted waiting? Waiting for the perfect conditions, waiting to feel ready, waiting to be absolutely sure, waiting for the pain to lessen enough, waiting for someone to come and save you, waiting for time to heal everything on its own. And what happened? Nothing. You remained stuck in the same places, only older, more tired, more cynical. The hard truth is that you don't change until the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. And for many Scorpios, this pain tolerance is absurdly high. You can endure levels of suffering that would cause other people to completely crumble. You pride yourself on this resilience, but you're using this strength in the wrong place. You're using it to endure intolerable situations instead of using it to make the necessary changes to get out of those situations. Scorpio, if you truly want 2026 to be different, you need to start the change now, not in January. Now, at this very moment as you read these words, because the only difference between you who are stuck in repetitive cycles and you who are constantly evolving is the decision to begin, and to keep beginning every day, not one big dramatic transformation that happens all at once, but small daily deaths of old patterns, small daily rebirths of new behaviors. You need to start noticing when you're falling back into old patterns and consciously choose differently. When you feel that urge to test someone who is being genuine with you, pause, breathe, choose to trust instead of destroy. When you feel that need to control every detail of a situation, pause, breathe, choose to let go and see what happens. When you feel that impulse to isolate yourself completely, pause, breathe, choose to share what you're feeling with someone safe. When you feel that urge to burn a bridge down, pause, breathe, choose to communicate your frustration instead of destroying everything. Every time you make these different conscious choices, you break the cycle a little. Every time you act in a new way, you create new neural pathways. Every time you respond differently from the automatic pattern, you become less predictable to yourself. And this unpredictability, this ability to surprise yourself with your own choices, is the beginning of true transformation. But you need to be honest about where you are right now, brutally honest. No romanticizing, no justifying, no minimizing. Look at the last 5 years of your life. Really look, not the stories you tell yourself about those years, but the raw reality. How many times did you repeat the same mistakes? How many times did you promise change and then go back on your word? How many opportunities did you sabotage? How many good people did you push away? How much time did you waste on situations you already knew had no future? How much of your potential lay dormant because you were afraid to shine? Now project those same patterns onto the next 5 years. If you don't change anything, what will your life be like in 2030? Will you be proud? Will you have grown? Will you have created something meaningful? Or will you be the same, just more bitter, more tired, more resigned to a life that falls far short of what you know it could be? Does this visualization terrify you? It should, because that's exactly what will happen if you keep waiting for New Year's to do the work that only you can do. The change you need to make isn't comfortable. It will involve facing truths about yourself that you've been avoiding. It will involve acknowledging that you actively contributed to many of the situations you complain about. It will involve admitting that you chose to stay in places where you weren't happy because you were afraid of the unknown. It will involve accepting that you have wounds that need healing instead of being used as excuses to continue behaving in destructive ways. It will involve forgiving people you swore you'd never forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve the freedom that comes with letting go of resentment. It will involve setting boundaries with people you love, but who don't treat you well, not because you've stopped loving them, but because you've finally begun to love yourself. It will involve real vulnerability, not the controlled version of vulnerability you sometimes allow, where you still hold all the cards, but true vulnerability where you relinquish control and trust the process. And it will involve failure. You will try to change, and sometimes you will fail. You will fall back into old patterns. You will make the same mistakes you swore you wouldn't make again. But here's the difference. When you are genuinely committed to change, you get up and try again. You don't use relapse as proof that change is impossible. You use it as information about where you still need to work. You develop compassion for yourself instead of self-flagellation, and you keep going because you know that the alternative, remaining the same forever, is unacceptable. Scorpio, you possess a power most people can't even imagine. The power of complete transformation, of total rebirth, of fundamental recreation of who you are. But you only use this power when you're at rock bottom, when life forces you to, when you have no other choice. But what if you could access this power before the crisis? What if you could choose to transform yourself instead of waiting to be forced by circumstances? What if 2026 could be different, not because the year has something special, but because you decided to become someone different? This requires you to kill versions of yourself that are still alive. The you that protects itself through emotional distance. The you that uses sarcasm to avoid real intimacy. The you that punishes people who disappoint you instead of communicating what needs to be communicated. The you that creates impossible tests that no one can pass. The you that prefers to be right rather than happy. The you that chooses the familiar and painful over the unknown and potentially good. These versions need to die, truly die, not be suppressed or controlled, but transformed so completely that they no longer exist. And in their place, you consciously create who you want to be, not who you think you should be based on external expectations, but who you genuinely want to be when you remove all trauma, all fear, all armor. Who are you without wounds defining your choices? Who are you when you choose love instead of fear? Who are you when you use your intensity to build instead of destroy? Who are you when you apply your depth to heal instead of hurt? If this message is bothering you, if it's touching on wounds you'd rather keep closed, if it's making you feel uncomfortable, good. It means it's hitting the mark. It means you recognize the truth in what I'm saying, even if you don't want to admit it. It means you know you need to change, even if you're afraid. Use this discomfort. Let it propel you into action instead of paralyzing you in denial. Share in the comments only, "I'm changing now," if you are committed to doing things differently. Don't explain what you're going to change. Don't promise specific things, just state your intention. Because intention without action is just fantasy, and you've fantasized long enough about the person you could be. It's time to actually become that person. Subscribe to the channel because in the next videos, I'll guide you through the specific steps on how to break each of the main self-destructive Scorpio patterns. I'll show you concrete techniques on how to stop cycles the moment they begin. I'll give you tools to rebuild your relationship with yourself in a way that supports real growth instead of sabotaging it. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any part of this process. Scorpio 2026 could be your year, but only if you decide to be a different person. The year itself has no power. You do. You always have. The question is whether you will continue to waste that power waiting for external salvation, or whether you will finally seize it and use it to break free from the cycles that bind you. The choice has always been yours. It always will be yours. You change or everything repeats itself. Simple as that, brutal as that, real as that.